So my question, Your Holiness, is like in the modern life, a student has to have a scientific attitude. How should a student in this life, towards life, learning life, have a spiritual attitude? What is the spiritual attitude you would recommend?
I think the spirituality, which I mentioned, secular way, is very scientific. Number of top scientists, now they really, you see, they feel that kind of spirituality is very necessary. This is scientific. Not talking about God or goddesses or hell. Not talking. How to create healthy body, healthy family, like that. So then also, now the scientists, especially brain scientists, you see, they know when our brain more calm, the ability to investigate is much stronger. When your mind disturbed, then the ability to thinking, to investigate, also, you see, disturbed, like that. So therefore, now the brain scientists, particularly brain specialists, now they appreciate, you see, any method to bring calm mind, they consider something very necessary, relevant. If we talk health, or I have, you see, one friend in many, I think in early 70s, one Indian, you see, who attended Tibetan library at Dharamsala, some class, it was a Buddhist class there. So one Indian, later you see, he came to see me, and he told me he participated some classes, or talking about altruism, infinite altruism, and patience. He really felt very, very useful. Then one occasion, in his class, you see, discussed or taught by hell. Then he told me, hell, some hell, too much heat, some hell, too much coldness. So he fed up, and then he didn't sort of participate in the class. He told me like that. So therefore, you know, when we talk, if may I say so, sometimes our sort of spiritual tradition, sometimes you see use fear. I think that's the wrong way. We should, say, give enthusiasm, courage, and happily, you see, pursue. Of course, I'm Buddhist, so maybe a little biased, right, or prejudiced. I think Buddha's teaching Four Noble Truths. He mentioned suffering and the causes of suffering. He mentioned these things because the third Noble Truth is cessation of all suffering. Then the method to achieve that fourth Noble Truth. So, I think to Buddhists, without talking about cessation about the third Noble Truth of Nirodha, Nirodha, cessation, without talking that, just to tell suffering, I think more frustration. Telling, make clear the possibility to achieve permanent sort of cessation of suffering through cessation of causes of suffering. Then enthusiasm develop. Clear. So this is not a way to manipulate fear, but rather courage, enthusiasm.
First question to you, sir, what is the secret of your health? Because at the age of 81, you look with a smiling face and you look so young. what is the secret of your success? What is the secret of your health?
Secret.
Secret of your health.
Oh,
Second question, what is the main message you would like to give to our young students so that they may also inspire and get the inner beauty? Inner beauty.
I think the first part, because what is secret? I should keep secrecy. As briefly I mentioned, I think comparatively, you see, in spite difficult life, at age 16, I lost my freedom. Age 24, I lost my own country. A lot of problem. At age 16, I took the responsibility, temporary responsibility. A lot of difficulties. But however, you see, in these years, I think, truly I think grateful to Nalanda Masters sort of was. They have brilliant explanation about our life, about reality. And that also, you see, use because extensively logical approach. That is something, so I think the major differences. I think about 3 years ago, I met some of the professors of Buddhist University in Bangkok. You see, we met and we discussed some common sort of things like Four Noble Truths or these things, or 37 practice. These are common. So then I asked, when you study these points, mainly relying on because of scriptures, or use some reasons. Then they say relying on scriptures. Then in Nalanda tradition, Sanskrit tradition, like the Dharmakirtis, say Parmanda Vattika Karika, the second chapter explaining about Four Noble Truths, these things. Each point use reasons. So that's some of the differences. The way of also the approach or analyze thing, not relying on quotation. As far as the quotation is concerned, some Nalanda masters actually rejected some Buddha's own word. Because Buddha himself, you see, give us some kind of freedom. He mentioned, "Oh, my follower, bhikshus and scholars should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." So some of the Nalanda masters, you see, rejected some Buddha's own teaching like that. So therefore, I think the training, you see, these way, use reasons and experiment. That also, I think, keep fresh your sharp mind. That also some, I think, because of effect. See, I think number of scholars who spent 20, 30 years rigorous study, in spite their old age, their mind very sharp. I think training really makes differences. Not only so simply to training, but with open-minded and further investigate. So that's I think some my secret. Then another I think secret is warm-heartedness. That also not relying on quotation, but use, as I mentioned earlier, reasons and scientific findings and common experiences. Then you develop a firm conviction. The warm-heartedness is really immense beneficial to oneself and the other. So these things, and as a result, I think each night, 8 to 9 hours sound sleep. That also another secrecy, my secret. So this is first part, right? Second part, correct? Second part, yes. As I mentioned earlier, I think we already drafting curriculum about secular ethics, which can be fit in secular education field. So we already start working that, and mainly with help of Emory University in America. We already some draft read. So further we are discussing. So I think eventually, I think within this year or next year, there is some drafting. First, some draft or curriculum will be available. Then I think the further professors, I think, should look and some research, some discuss, and then feel okay. Then I think as an experiment, as a pilot project, this is some class, let them study these things and watch what effect, what result after 2, 3, 4 years. If something quite sort of significant sort of what's the effect, then we can expand or more classes like that. So, your question.
To live in joint families. And India has always been unique in its own culture. And over the past recent times, unfortunately, the joint family system is sort of breaking down into nuclear families. What is your opinion on this, and what would your recommendation be to us?
I think you should have a better answer. For me, monk, celibate, no family. So sometimes in the West, some sort of celibate monk, and I usually telling them, look, people who have family, sometimes are very happy, joyful, sometimes quarrel. Then worst thing, divorce with children. Difficult, very difficult. So those family, people who have family, you see, too much ups and downs. Then monk may not be over joyful, but very straighty. Straighty, barbe. Stable. Stable, steady, like that. So then obviously, I think they, sometimes in some country, I think they, each family member working. So then eventually, old parent sometimes is put in certain sort of home, old home. So I think Of course, if there is no other way, then okay. But otherwise, I think Indian tradition, quite a big family, grandparent, parent, and children live together. I think mentally, those particular older people, I think much happier, I feel. Yeah.
How important do you think is the way you speak, the words which you choose, the atmosphere you try and create before you speak to someone, and your own attitude? Because this is speech which creates all relationships between two people or between a lot of people.
Karsa.
Thank you.
I think practice of love is common. Islam, Allah, infinite love, God, infinite love. So I think those who say a common thing really brings closer understanding. In the philosophical fields, there is differences. So then, I often use it telling, make clear different philosophical views, but make clear all these different philosophical views, same purpose, to strengthening or love, practice of love, or to increase conviction about the value of compassion or love. So then no problem. So the word, yes, sometimes suppose the word, human language is supposed to help to understanding a reality. Language is something unique about a human being, no other animal. But sometimes you see, the word, language also creates more confusion. It is true. It is true. Even you see, the same Tibetan language is in different interpretation according to different scholars. Sometimes you see confused.
From our logical brain, we get a decision, and our feeling, we get a decision number 2. So in generally, we have a conflict of interest between our thought process and our feeling. So we develop stress over this both decisions. So how do you handle this kind of situation?
You see, I think the feeling is much related with sensorial level. That is common with other animals, birds, fish. So we human beings, this special brain there. So sometimes decision out of your feeling may not be long-term useful or correct. So your feeling important, but must combine with human intelligence. Analyze long-term sort of interest or long-term sort of benefit. So as we have a unique brain, have the ability to look more holistic, long-term. So that we must use, more important. Isn't it? Just according to the immediate sort of feeling. That animal also do that. Okay.
It's very nice to see you in India, because as you know, we do have so many history reasons, so you are familiar to me. So for me, I have 2 questions. The first question is, you have been traveling in India for a long time. So for you, what is the definition of home, and where is your home? Then my second question is, 2 months ago, I had been to Srinagar, Kashmir. Then as we know, we remember some issue happened in India just a couple of weeks ago. So if we take experience between Tibet and China, so for you, what kind of suggestion you will give for India and Kashmir? Thank you very much.
Yes, this physical level, this physical born in Tibet, So, from that level, yes, Tibet is my home. And within Tibet, place where I born, that's my home. The rest, Tibet. So these relative. Then, now 81-year-old person, over 57 years now I spent in this country. So from that viewpoint, India is my home. Then furthermore, world is my home. There is a Tibetan saying,
wherever you are happy, that's your home. Whoever is kind to you is your parent.
Like that. So then, India is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, our original teacher, mainly Shantarakshita, 8th century. Almost at that time, topmost philosopher, logician of Nalanda institution, Shantarakshita. He invited by Tibetan emperor, 8th century, he introduced Buddhism in Tibet. Naturally, according to his own sort of institutions, sort of the way, Nalanda. So today, I think, among the Buddhist countries, I think the Tibetan, I think, kept original sort of the tradition of Nalanda, combined sort of Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist sort of monk's role, and then one particular thing is Buddhist logic. Dignaga, great logician, Nalanda master, and Dharmakirti, and then Shantarakshita, his disciple, Kamalashila. These are great logicians. They are writing. You see, we use their writing as a textbook, study rigorously. So therefore, you see, we have some very close connection with the Nalanda tradition. So in any way, now I think since, my first visit to Europe, 1973, so at that time, BBC correspondent Makhtali, you see, he asked me, why you have interest visit European countries? And I answered, I consider myself as a citizen of the world. So I want to see more places. So now today, even more, I'm talking about a 7 billion human being. I'm not sort of making distinction east or west or north or south, or this color or that color. Same human being. Mentally, emotionally, physically, same. Sometimes I jokingly, telling the best proof the sameness of, different people, they can marry and produce nice children. So that means we are same. So like that. Then third, this is the second part. Huh? Oh, now, China, relation between Chinese or Han people and Tibetan, I think nearly 2,000 years sort of history. So many Tibetan kings marry with Chinese princes. Very close relations, sometimes fighting. So 1954, September, I went to Peking to participate the Chinese, what is it, the Congress, or the National People's Congress. Then, 55 summer, I returned from Peking to Lhasa. On the way, in Xing'an, the ancient capital of China, we spent a few days there. One day, sightseeing, no official program, just sightseeing. On the wall, ancient wall of Xing'an, the capital. We just sat on the wall. One high Chinese official accompanied with me. He mentioned, oh, ancient time, Tibetan army reached up to here. The Chinese emperor in the capital have to flee because of threat of Tibetan the army. So he told me like that. So then I think recently, I think last year, or 2 years ago, one American, I think Columbia University, Columbia University, this is some historian. They carry some research work about history of that part of the world. So then, mainly based on ancient Chinese history book, like Tang Shu, you know. So then, they mentioned, they found 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, you see, at that time, 3 emperors, Chinese emperor, Emperor Ka, Chinese Empire, and Mongolian Empire, a Tibetan Empire. The Chinese Empire, more serious concern about political matter. The Mongolian, more military. The Tibetan Empire, more religious. And anyway, you see, I think between India and Tibet, I think a few occasions some fight. Otherwise not much.
Sir, we have a gentleman over there. He's standing. Oh. Yes, sir.
So you see, we fully committed, not seeking separation or independence. Now time changed. Past is past. Now look, European Union, the spirit of European Union, the independent sovereign state, now for common interest, live together. So eventually, I think the whole world should follow the European spirit. I think, like modern India, you see, I think a few thousand rajas, isn't it, in this country. Then independence, you see, all live together. South Indian, North Indian, West Indian, East Indian, different script, different language. Some Tamil Nadu, some people criticize Hindi. So they consider Tamil language is much advanced. Doesn't matter. You see, live together as the Indian Union. Wonderful, wonderful. So therefore, you see, we also, you see, thinking, is it Tibet and Xinjiang or this, whether you see part of China or not, we can live happily together. So we fully committed, remain within the People's Republic of China for mutual benefit. To us, the plenty of money, yuan, we can use and construct Tibet. And then the Tibetan rich Nalanda spirituality serve now today in China, Buddhist population, over 400 millions. So many of these Buddhists really showing eagerness to learn from our knowledge. So we can help them. So like that. So another level of happy marriage. Okay.